Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Batch London. I've waited for 3 days to have the microphone to introduce you all to this beautiful shop, which we built 18 months ago, and never would I have imagined that we would be hosting stuff like this with brands like this, this is the fitting platform for guys to try our clothes on. We built like this as like a bedroomy type boudoir. Never would I have expected to be running events like this. We're only 4 years old, so the opportunity to collaborate with people like Wayflyer and Circulate has been amazing. I have loved the last 3 days, and I just wanted to say thank you to you all for still being here. It's Friday night. You could be doing a lot more fun things, but I'm hoping between myself and the boys from Manors, we'll make it worth your while. So run the VT, I think, first, just to give a bit of context on the boys and the type of brand they're building.
So you call yourself a golfer? I hear that a lot these days. Every summer they flock here in their masses. Come to Iceland, where the grass is green and the light is golden. Well, I can tell you there's a lot more to golf here than that. There are two types of golfers. You have the children of the summer. They play with tourists. Off front tees, they lay up on par fives. And then there are those who remain when the days get short and the wind grows deep. Because if you want to become a real golfer, you must be ready to walk through mud and rain, in the cold and the dark, and to climb the highest dune, and play until your feet and hands are numb. The real ones are here when the sun is gone and the ball is lost. These are the golfers that will carve their name in the frost.
Bastard nearly hit you.
Fucking tourists.
Oh man, how good is that? Just a brand taking the piss out of golf, man. It's amazing. Right, so this talk is about how investing in brand builds a business that lasts. These guys are kind of the... That's okay. These guys are kind of the masters at that. About 6 months ago, I actually voice noted JoJo, just like, what's the secret sauce? How are you guys creating such high quality content at such volume and building a brand through really strong organic content in a market and a sport that has traditionally been very traditional and very perceived in a certain way? So, Luke, I'll start with you, mate. If you had to explain Manors to somebody in one sentence without mentioning golf apparel, what would you say?
Golf is not a game to be mastered, but a game to be explored.
There you go. Well, as simple as that. So, JoJo, take us right back to the start, mate. What was the initial inspiration for Manors and how did it all come about?
So there's two phases to Manors, right? Where we are today versus where we first started are two very different things. So when Luke and I first came up with the idea, we thought about this beautiful nostalgic era of golf when men smoked cigars, cigarettes, and wore pink cardigans. And it was cool, yeah, but I tell you what, there's not a big market for it. And we spent a little bit too much money learning about that, and it was tough going to begin with, but we luckily, because of Luke's idea around this technical space in golf that hadn't yet been addressed, we decided to pivot the business, and that's when we pushed into technical golf apparel. So the technical side of the game is that's what we launched in 2023. That was our kind of rebirth as a brand. And the concept there was essentially that, like Luke said, golf's not a game to be mastered, it's a game to be explored. And so it was like, what if the North Face had a baby and that baby played golf? That was who Manors was. That's what we wanted to try and ideate around.
Do I need the mic to speak? I can't just speak loudly.
Grab the mic.
Go with the mic.
All good.
To be honest, as flattering as this is, I think the first 2 years of Manors, we got so much wrong. Our initial proposition, I think the sport and the sector of golf as a whole changed so much in 2 years. Like it probably grew up 10 years in the space of 2. The reasons for that was Tiger. How many golfers are in the audience? Like, just a show of hands. I like the fact they went up quick and we're not ashamed anymore. The narrative of golf when we first started trying to get Manors off the ground was like, it was an aging sport, elitist, really inaccessible. The clothing was pathetic. And so our initial proposition was just like, can we make golf clothes that are cool? The problem was after COVID and Tiger Woods winning the Masters, golf suddenly grew so quickly that there was a new lifestyle golf brand that started every single week. And so for 2 years, I think a lot of founders start a business and they're like, God, I hope we don't fail. I hope we don't fail. There's something more dangerous than failing, and that is very moderate success, because if you fail quickly, you can pivot. What we did, although we had some good, press and earned media, and people were like, this is interesting, it wasn't enough to build a business on. And so after 2 years of doing our kind of classic collection style of Manors, because there was so saturated the amount of brands in golf, suddenly as a startup, you have to be disruptive, and you can only be disruptive through your product or the way you show up. And suddenly our product wasn't disruptive anymore, and the way we showed up was still this overhang of like traditional sports brands making hero campaigns around autumn, winter, and spring, summer. So we got so much wrong in the first 2 years.
Yeah, I think where most of us have probably come across Manors is post-pivot. I think I was that as well. Like, explain to me, JoJo, a little bit like, what were the conversations around brand pre-pivot and post-pivot? And like, were you just like running around like headless chickens for the first few years, like not knowing what the hell you were doing, and then had the opportunity to be like, okay, we get it now, let's pivot? And how has like the narrative changed in how you've like built Manors from pre-pivot to post-pivot?
I think the most important thing was that Luke and I have and still have ambitions to build a very big business. And the only way that we could do that, or I should say also affect change in golf, and the only way that you can affect change in a sport is if you're a big business. And we looked at the lifestyle sport or lifestyle golf side of things and just realized that the market wasn't there. And so we knew that we didn't really have a choice, and we had to get the backing of our investors and everyone to say, everything we've spent money on right now, other than the name, we're dropping it all. So we literally changed product, we changed the logo, we did everything again. Yes, there were some good learnings to take away from it, but honestly, we were such a small business that it was irrelevant. And where we are today versus where we were then are two totally different places. And I think the idea that the pivot, suddenly there was a eureka moment, it would be incorrect to say that was true, because we launched the technical apparel and we were still struggling. Like, it still wasn't clicking. It didn't necessarily start selling, like flying off the shelves. So much has happened between then in March 23 when we pivoted and launched that and now. And we still don't know all the right answers, but we know a lot more. The pivot was just one part of the whole process.
I would just add to that for any fashion brand, it's really hard if your positioning and your moat is that you're cool, because cool changes every year, every season. And so you want to have something in your brand position which is unique and is more expansive that you can talk about. So if the only selling point is our clothes are cool, you run out of shit to talk about. And if you're using organic social as your main marketing channel, it's not about the traditional wisdom in marketing is like, your brand stands for one thing. Say that thing as many times as you can. Whereas our position is like, you cannot show up on social if you're only saying one self-serving brand message. You have to be able to dilute that message and come out to an audience where it's going to offer value and relevance. And so our core branding pillar was golf clothes that can be cool. And then it changed to, okay, what is unique about our positioning around golf? And that was the avenue that we didn't have to be a performance brand. We could take the approach that surfers take to surfing. Like, if you meet a surfer, you're not saying, how good are you at surfing? You're saying, where have you surfed? Where has this sport taken you? And we felt no one was operating that narrative ground within golf.
Yeah, nice. I think like this is a little bit off course, no pun intended, for me. But Jojo, talk to me a little bit about like, and you can be as transparent or as little as transparent as you want to be about this, but like how much had you sort of made revenue-wise pre-pivot in order for you to be able to take that to investors and be like, okay, we've got a rough proof of concept here, we've kind of been barking up the wrong tree potentially a little bit, I need X amount of money to rebrand and come out all guns firing with this fresh sense of who Manors was and is?
There was a lot of difficult conversations because I'd sold them the dream on cardigans and now I wanted to tell them about polyester. So I think the thing that we were very lucky with is that, like Luke said, we failed very quickly. So we launched the business in 2019 and it was still not a full-time thing for us. And it quickly became a full-time thing for me. And then eventually I managed to convince Luke to give up the directing dream to sell golf clothes. And I think what we were very lucky with is that we had investors that really understood our vision and essentially they backed us. You know, they were like, look, you didn't get it right, but I'm happier that you tell us now than burn more cash. You know, we still had a little bit of money, we could still pivot, we could still pay the branding agency and things like that. But it did mean that when we came to the market with a new product, we needed an arsenal or we needed a reserve of cash to be able to put that out into the world. So it was tough, but I think the coolest thing about being open and honest, which is something we've always been with our shareholders, is that the worst thing they're going to tell you is no. And if you care enough, you'll work hard enough to find the cash you need to make it work and to fulfill what you're trying to achieve.
Nice, awesome, thank you for that. Luke, I think over the last sort of few years, maybe 2-3 years, there's been a clear focus on collaboration with a lot of big brands, especially recently as well. I think I've seen the whiskey one most recently as well. How much of an influence would you say that's been on Manors' success over the last few years versus like just going out there and doing it yourself?
Good question. I would actually slightly disagree with Jojo that for me there was a pivotal moment why we had to change from the classic collection because our first collaboration was with Adidas in 2021 or something.
First collab with Adidas.
First collab with Adidas. And by the way, collaborations, honestly, we say collaboration, it was so messy. We were so small on them, but we just pitched them the dream and we said we'd take so much of the work and they managed to sign it off and then you just dial it up on socials like this is a full legitimate collab and we actually managed to get some big talent for it. But that collaboration sold out within 4 hours and previous to that, all of our classic collection stuff, it was a pretty grueling process trying to move product. And so the first light bulb moment for me was, okay, this isn't just the fact that people are buying because it's Adidas. It was the first time that we used slightly more performance technical fabrics, but our same Manors DNA. And so I was like, okay, the market clearly wants this. That was the first inception of it. The best thing about collaborations is we have all of these big ideas and organic social and campaigns that we want to do, and we just couldn't afford them. So we'd have to always be doing cheap run and gun. But if you find the right collaborator, even if they have a moderate marketing budget,
they pay for it.
They pay for it. And what was amazing is so we have true collaborations, let's say with Adidas and Reebok and the PGA Tour, which for a brand play, we're like, this is fantastic. I'm not going to say the other names, but there are other partnerships which maybe aren't the perfect brand opportunity, but they allow you to do the things that you want to create as a brand. Yeah. And so it's been pretty important, but we're also playing against a landscape where collaborations are so saturated, and there's a lot of brands that use collaborations as just cash grabs. So for me, if we're doing a collaboration, I want to have a real reason why our two brands are in conversation. What's the concept of the collaboration? What's the narrative ground that we're going to be telling? It's never just, every collaboration we've done has had this quite high concept attached to it, which feels like we have a new story to tell, which is relevant for both brands.
Yeah.
Does that answer?
Yeah, it does. What do you think you've created with Manors that has enabled you to collaborate with such massive brands? Like, is it because you're the only player in this like cool golf aesthetic apparel? Is it like the rebrand? Like, to go from struggling to rebrand to collaborating with Adidas is wild. Like, to put it into context, like Batch wants to do collaborations with brands like this and we fucking can't. Like, these boys have, and that's why I wanted to host this, because it's very interesting, it's very impressive. Like, what do you think you created that got that sign off?
Honestly, there is a lot of luck and circumstance involved, and that isn't to speak down the talents of everyone in the Manors team, but you've got to remember when we started this, golf was, I think the only sport that had a worse perception than golf was shooting. Like golf is just like people that don't play golf actively dislike golf. And so our first two collaborations were the Open, which is like the equivalent of the FA in football, and then Adidas. And so there was a real demand for like golf knew it had to become more accessible and more accommodating to new audiences. And there just weren't that many brands doing it. And also I would say, if you're pitching a collaboration over email, you've already fucked it. Like you need to be able to sell them the dream. We put so much work into our collaboration proposals, which, 9 of 10 of them, you never get a response and you're just like wasted time. But the one that does come off, they have to open it and that CMO or creative director has to see it, get the whole thing straight away and want to have a call.
Add to that as well. The other big thing I think which has been so pivotal is the fact that we've said no to so many collaboration opportunities. And I think what that does then is it means that people see us as a business or a brand that takes them seriously. We say no to a lot of the inbound requests because we don't believe that we can portray the collaboration opportunity in a way which those who follow our brand would see as authentic. And as soon as the authenticity is out of the door, then it's not something of interest. Now, what I will say is that is definitely Luke's area.
You
Whereas
don't
for
sound
me,
like this on our commercial meetings.
yeah. Whereas for me, I'm like, how much are they going to pay? But there is a very real scenario where it's like you have to actually say no to big names. And we just did this project with Jack Daniels. Like, we're so grateful for that opportunity because they're actually an amazing business. And this is not a sponsored ad, but they are an amazing business because we spent the time to invest in understanding what they represented and who were the people behind them. That also gave us an opportunity to do a lot of things we wanted. If it's another brand that might come with the same amount of money, but we really didn't believe in what we could tell because there were guardrails or there were limits, then it would just end up being a no.
Also, just to add on that, the honest truth from our side, last year, or maybe it's this year, partnerships is going to make up 25% of our revenue, which I hate. Like, I'm in a position now where
I love them.
He does, but the problem is, it's great if it's giving you an opportunity to create more work that you couldn't afford to do yourself, but it does become a distraction. And like, because of my experience and the makeup of the team, like we are good at doing those, but collaborations isn't the answer. The answer is a collaboration when it really fits your brand positioning and what story you're trying to tell.
Well, it's fascinating. So you've quickly gone beyond like a retail e-commerce apparel brand, and now you're now using Manors as a vehicle to go out to market to get other people to pay you to do sick marketing stuff, which is like a fascinating position to be in and something that I very much envy and something that I get a lot of inspiration from. I'm like, well, hang on a second. I need to spend more time on building these decks to approach bigger businesses than me. But how did you find like bandwidth and the time that it takes to build a meaningful deck, the research, the understanding of the other business, the purpose, how big's the team and how much time do you guys spend on these thoughts that aren't necessarily day to day, like how much product have we sold on Shopify today? And you're investing so much time into brand and not necessarily like the nuts and bolts of what a typical e-commerce brand does, but it's paying dividends, right?
I mean, yeah, since the rebrand, we've grown north of 100% last 3 years and like on track for 200% this year, and with such minimal paid marketing. So it's like I'm fully a believer in just the power of organic social. The problem is you've got to work at it for 12 months before you start seeing the return, but it compounds so much. And even if you want to get into the data, just like organic search, just like that as a channel, better first average order value, better lifetime value, more likely to return as a customer, more likely to talk to another customer and convince them to buy Manors. So we really believe in it. My background, I was a failed director. I spent 10 years, my dream as a kid was to be a director, and went to film school and like, again, moderately successful. I made a career of it for 10 years, but never really broke through, but I just understood storytelling. So I'd spent my life pitching to brands, trying to convince them to make stuff. So there was a little bit of a head start there. But to be honest, at the beginning when you're not doing big revenue numbers, the thing you do have is not maybe experience in a big business, but you do have time. You have to be able to work late evenings and put the extra effort in. So, at the beginning, it was just like, there wasn't ever a time where we're like, oh, we should be spending our time on something else. It's like, if it could work, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And Also, I think a lot of people, understandably, they see the front end of our business and they say, wow, you guys and what you do on social and everything within Luke's department is unbelievable. But there's actually an very, very solid back end in our business too, which starts within marketing and acquiring top of funnel and understanding, Klaviyo flows and understanding all of the semantics. And then, we have our head of ops and logistics, Nitesh here. We hired him way sooner than a business of our size should have done. But we understood the fact that Luke and I are not the kind of people that should be or we're not the right people to be able to look at where orders are lost. And we invested in team ahead of the curve. That's been a huge value add to our business. It's a benefit of obviously having taken investment, but we took investment because we realized that we wanted to do those things. And hiring good people means that good people spend their time doing what they're good at, leaving spare time for people to pitch or to look at how to optimize our Royal Mail delivery by 20p, things like that. All of those small bits, they add up to a lot. And I think the back end of our business is a lot stronger than people probably realize as well.
And quickly, whilst we're touching on investments slightly, very quickly, what's the elevator pitch for new investors? What's the elevator pitch for Andy Murray coming on board? Are you selling him the brand dream? Are you selling him this massive multiple exit? Obviously that's going to be part of the conversation, but how much does brand come into that investment conversation?
Now it comes in more because it's an easier sell. They go on our Instagram, wow, look at how many followers you have. And that's easier now, but it wasn't obviously before when we were smaller. I think they invest in us. That's obviously super important, and they understand that we're passionate about trying to create something that's successful. We also have really good, economics. We're a profitable business. We're growing at 220% this year, and we're doing it profitably. That is very rare in our industry, but it's also not what they were incented. VCs weren't 5 years ago saying grow with EBITDA. They were saying grow at all costs. Now they switched their tune, and businesses are kind of caught in the headlights because they're like, oh, you told me to spunk all my money, and I did, and now you're telling me that I need to be profitable. And where I think Luke and I have always been really focused on is yes, growth is important, but also how do we have a positive contribution margin? How do we make sure that we're able to scale this business in a economically correct way? And we're able to lean into the organic content that Luke and the team are creating, which is much more efficient. But, there's a lot of things you have to get right if you're able to actually scale across the board within a business, an economic business.
Cool. One of you can choose who's maybe Luke. The paid versus organic conversation, it's kind of painfully boring, and most consumer brands are hamstrung or dedicated to Meta and paid ads in order to sell their products. And personally at Batch, we've never done paid ads. We've grown year on year without it. These guys have done incredibly well in the organic space, and we use them as an inspiration for this is how you do the organic playbook. I guess the question is the relationship, paid is still an important vehicle when it comes to marketing. I don't think you can't not do it, but how have you managed to push forward with an organic strategy that's worked, and what's the relationship between paid and organic now?
So I can literally argue either side for this. I'm so in the middle here. So the reason we didn't do paid is, one, we couldn't afford it. Two, when we did it, we ran out of stock, so we just didn't do it. And also, if you get organic...
Worst problems to have.
But not when you're only ordering minimums every single time. I guess also, we got quite lucky that we found formats that worked in organic, so we were experiencing a lot of growth from that. But the answer is never, which one. It's both. And I think for us, the biggest watershed moment for me is having spent 3 years concentrating on organic and being all on organic and being actually quite negative on paid and almost judging e-com brands when they're just spending 90% of their budget on paid. Finally, our head of marketing, Alex, who sadly couldn't be here tonight because his roof fell in, he was desperate to go, can we do a paid ads trial? Let's pick 3 of our best performing products, and let's do, instead of these kind of branded assets that are great for the emotional buyer, he was like, let's do 30 assets designed for conversion for paid media and suck up all of that organic attention we've already got, and let's just see how it works. And so we ordered a load of stock in 3 of our best performing products, so much that we're like, okay, if we get a 4x ROAS, it will be a huge success. We created all these assets for paid, and in 6 weeks we had to shut the assets off. And it was by far the most instrumental, from a revenue perspective, thing we've ever done through content. So although people think of us as an organic brand, like, it does need to be a balance. We've been 90% organic because it's been cheaper and it's been our skill set. But the more organic you do, the better effective your paid is. But if you become too reliant on paid, you start to blend in with everyone else. And it's just like, there are different types of buyers. There are buyers that want to know, what are the fabrics, what are the features, like, what are the performance benefits, what is the offer? But then there are emotional buyers who just want to be sold the story. And so it's finding that mix and combination. A lot of the time it's going to come from your budgets and your stock availability, and scaling them is really difficult. But I just think we were at a talk the other day, not talking, but listening. And the brand, I won't say their name, but they're a $100 million revenue business. And 90% of their budget was spent on paid marketing. And they're putting out 500 assets a month. And they hadn't posted on Instagram for 6 months. And they're giving this talk on how disruptive they are as a brand. And I'm like, to create that many assets and undervalue what organic can do. And when I asked him about it, he was like, these just aren't on brand for us. And then it just goes, I'm sure everyone in this room has an opinion on the style, quantity versus quality debate. But it's that thing I said before about brands are so scared that they have to show up within their brand universe and like tick all the brand boxes. And it's like, organic social doesn't work like that. You just have to stop being so precious. The only way you find true quality that isn't subjective to your taste, but is by throwing shit at the wall and being able to relax the brand parameters and testing new formats and iterating off that.
Yeah. No, what would you say is like the secret to a successful organic campaign or successfully socially native content? Because what you guys are able to do, which is quite difficult for small brands with small budgets, is maintain an incredible level of quality whilst also being very socially native. And that's where we struggle and other brands struggle, is we're a casual suit brand. We have this premium brand, it's made in London, but we're struggling without budget to create socially native content that lands on Instagram. You guys haven't struggled there. So what do you think the secret's been to making that work?
Your definition of quality, is that a premium asset, or is that it does really well on reach impressions?
The cost of the good is 400 quid for a suit. So like, you have to maintain a certain level of like, your content that you put out can't be ropey or
we put out a lot of ropey content.
Well, maybe you do, and we're just so we're in this scroll and flick and swipe culture, and maybe a lot of it has gone over my head. But it'd be interesting, what's the secret behind getting organic right?
Again, we've been doing it for 5 years, so we've been learning a lot, and you just get better Minnie here is our head of events, and she's also in our content team, and we have 2 meetings a week where we're analysing what worked and what didn't. So we're constantly getting better. I think the main takeaways that we've learned is, one, when you do a campaign film, when you have a new product launch and you're trying to make a big hero asset, a lot of brands, and this was from my directing days as well, they focus on what's the hero campaign film. If you don't have a paid budget and that hero campaign film doesn't work organically, it's gone 6 hours later and you've just wasted all this money. So the first thing is, when we come up with a campaign, we think social first. What are the cut downs? What are the things that are going to drive awareness and ladder up to the main campaign film? Not what are the cut downs from the main campaign film. So you think social first, and that's a buzzword, but it's really like, how is this going to break someone's doom scroll and capture their attention?
Attention's everything.
The quality thing, I think the quality debate is not in the premium nature of it, but it's how well it represents your brand.
Yeah.
And so it's like finding the middle ground of what's going to work for social native, but also represent your brand. Because you can do something that's a cheap TikTok that's a bit naff, but if it captures a nuance in your brand that golfers or your audience pick up on, then there is value in a meme, like a really good meme. Like, it's probably the most shared asset in all of our WhatsApps and Instagram groups, is like a meme that really hits the nail on the head. So I would say that. And then the other big learning is, we've been posting minimum once a day for 5 years, and our best performing assets every single time is the BTS of the hero stunt. So we always think of what's the biggest, most surreal moment we can capture, even if it's shot on an iPhone, and then actually showing how that was made. Every single time, that's the best performing asset. And I think a lot of that is going to be accelerated now with AI being able to generate content so quickly, that actually going out and doing it that's the value. You've got to be able to show that you are a bunch of people who are going out and doing these things and creating these moments. But the one sentence answer is just try shit, just start.
Nice. And did you want to add anything there, Jojo? To like move away from like mobile phones and ads and shit like that, like we're all glued to them. It's super important, but I think what Manors have done well, and I'm sure everyone will agree with me, especially capturing it socially anyway, is the in real life events, and you know, using golf and the fact that it's outdoors to get people together. At the end of the day, it's a sport that you play with friends and it's there to be enjoyed. How important have in real life events been for you guys, and how do you justify the cost when there's probably very little return? Well, revenue wise anyway.
We lose money.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the one thing that we've always been very fortunate with is we're a clothing business, but we align to a sport. And so by, you know, if you're selling suits, you know, people have a time of the year they need a suit and they might have it day to day, but no one is, and I hate to say this, but no one is like a suit connoisseur, or they might be a suit connoisseur, but it's not something necessarily that they might identify with, whereas people identify as golfers. Like, I love golf, I play golf, I talk about golf. Most golfers, that is exactly who they are. We talk about it a lot. And it's their lifestyle. And so we are able to tap into a lifestyle and something that people identify with. And that is a huge advantage that we have as a clothing business. So it always means that we're able to do more things within that space, and that looks like golf days. It looks like away days. You know, adventure in the game of golf. That is what our business is all about. You know, our head of marketing now, he's started saying, we sell adventure. We don't sell golf polos. You know, and it's like, well, kind of catchy, and it makes sense.
He only says that to partners, by the way.
Yeah, but it makes sense, and the reason why we choose to spend our money on events is because there's no substitute for getting people in a room together, playing a game of golf, and when they walk away, their lasting impression of our business is that business is a company that I want to align to. And they meet the founders of the company and they go, oh, that isn't just some big corporate business. It's actually run by real people, you know, who love the game. And so it's always impossible to say, this is how much we spent and this is what we got out of it. But we've never not done an event where I've left it going, well, that's happened, or this opportunity came about, or we got reached out by this brand because they saw what we did. We're actually able to run those events at a break even, which is you know pretty good considering the amount of engagement and reach and interaction we get from it. We have a thesis that with, like Luke's touched on, AI is only going to become more and more prominent, and we believe that people are going to lean into this idea that they want to engage with brands physically. And so therefore we would like to find a way to increase our cadence with events, but you know how hard they are to plan. That takes time. That's why we've hired people like Minnie, who are fantastic at doing those things and can help us increase the cadence of events.
But also, events are fucking tough. We go on a roundabout with events. It's like we do one and we're like, oh my God, why don't we do more? Why don't we do more? They're really expensive. I think you're being slightly generous with the break even, having just done the summer Stoke Park Invitational. But it really is I think for any product, but especially fashion, it sounds so pretentious saying fashion when you're a golf brand, but in apparel, the most powerful connection you can get is when someone's buying you not just because they like your clothes, but they like what your brand stands for. And maybe they can't even iterate, oh, Manors stands for exploration in golf, but it's just like there's this kind of synonymous relationship that happens. And the easiest way to do that is to go, well, don't think of us as a clothing brand. Think of us as just like, you had an amazing golf day. Like, capture that feeling at an amazing course with really interesting people, and like bucket that. That's what Manors stands for. That's what the logo matters.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't take offense at what you said earlier around like suit versus golf, because we had this conversation internally. It's like, you guys must fucking love golf because it's so marketable. It's got so many avenues. It's lifestyle. And I was like, people don't love suits. Like, people like it, so it's very difficult to gain the type of traction. So my question is like, how much do you contribute or like suggest like the game of golf has been like a vehicle for your success versus your outright ability as entrepreneurs?
So again, this is this is the honestly, I think if you had asked me that question at the beginning, I would have been like, no, it's our ability as founders, and JoJo's ability to his network and raise capital and my creative back. I think the most powerful thing in starting a business is the kind of culture of the market that you're entering into. And it's just like the timing of that is so important. Like golf, again, it's grown 10 years in the space of 2. And we were lucky enough to be in a sector that was doing it. Having said that, you don't like, one of the best brands in my opinion is Liquid Death. You know, you don't need that. Like we got lucky. We got very lucky and we had a great team and we learned on the way. But like you can do through unique brand positioning and storytelling, you can create that momentum yourself.
Yeah.
I'd also say on the Liquid Death thing, they also raised about 75 million quid and spunked a lot of it as well. But I will say that market conditions are very, very important, of course. But you know, you look at running, for example, there's been some fantastic brands, or cycling, Rafa and then Pas Normal. Of course, market conditions are super important, but I think that we've already seen that there's been 50 golf brands that have launched in, let's say, the last 5 years, probably 10 times that many, but those of note, probably 50. And everyone has their own playbook, and they've all taken different directions. Ours is different to some others, and some have been very successful and some have been less successful. But it's the sum of the parts, and the market conditions, I would say, play a very big role in the ability to be successful with good strategy.
Nice. Do you think there's maybe like another sport that's played that you guys could, like somebody could do a Manors in like tennis, or you must be thinking about that all the kind of time?
Well, someone did it when we had our first investor meetings. The pitch was, they're less cool now, but it was like Rafa for golf, because they did it in cycling, and now running's
Well, they're still pretty fucking cool. Everyone's wearing it.
No, and so it's like, I think, you know, kind of like how fashion changes, like new sports will become popular. Paddle is the it sport right now. Like those waves are constantly happening. I think the tension for us is, whilst both JoJo and I, we don't just love golf, we just love sport and play it at a very bad level. The tension we have is that most golf brands, the legacy Adidas, Nike, Jay Lindenberg, they aren't just golf brands. Golf is actually a bit of an afterthought after football, or for Jay Lindenberg, they're a skiing and lifestyle brand. And so there's something quite nice around, we're a golf brand made for golfers, by golfers, where it's like, and it's a huge market. So, you know, we're constantly going back and forth on what other sports we could go into, but ultimately it's like eyes on the prize.
Nice. I guess like that's kind of encapsulates the whole like building a brand that lasts ultimately. With regards to like any advice for people in the room, like what's one early stage thing a company could do like tomorrow, if you're maybe 2 or 3 years into building a brand, like what's one thing you would advise somebody to do and think about straight away in terms of building a stronger brand to like future-proof the business?
I think you had the people from Salt here. I think it's a bit of a trend right now, but documenting the process, like good content, essentially, and this is if it's a feature film or if it's a social reel, it's just like, what are the obstacles and what are the stakes? And so like the early days of starting a business are so like riddled with conflict, and just like you're so desperate to make a success of it, and there are so many obstacles and problems that documenting the process, a lot of people don't, because they're like, this isn't our brand positioning, but just do it on TikTok. No one fucking knows who you are on TikTok. Just like start posting content and get a base for what your audience likes, for one. The other thing is just like get everyone on the same page for what your brand positioning is, and like that doesn't mean it's the one thing, but it's like, how does that one thing trickle down to, you know, what are the other things that you can talk about as a suit business? Like, what does your audience care about? What are they interested in? Make sure you mind map that out so you know, how are we going to provide value and relevance for our audience? I think a lot of brands don't do that work early, and they try and bolt on the strategy once they've figured out product. They have to go in tandem. Yeah.
I think, like, do you want to add something there, JoJo?
Yeah, I think that one of the most powerful things that we've had is co-founders. Like, I think that the fact that I regularly will say Luke is the left side of my brain to I am his right. Like, we have very clear divisions about whose roles and responsibilities are what. And then our third co-founder, Nick, is our director of product. And, you know, Nicky is a pretty terrible golfer. Like, that's kind of an edge for us, right? Because he's designing and developing, understanding golf, but he's also understanding culture. And he's the trendiest man who walks into our office every morning wearing the craziest shit. But that's a huge advantage, I think. And a lot of friends of mine who are solo founders, a lot of the problems they face are automatically solved by having co-founders who are equally responsible or equally embedded in this being successful as you are. Nothing can, in my mind, nothing can replace that.
I just wanted to take a backward step back to the in real life stuff. You've recently opened a flagship store in Seoul in Korea. How much of a brand play is that for you versus all of the other levers that having a flagship store can pull, and why Korea, and what was the decision for you guys to go into physical retail when, to be quite frank, you probably didn't need to?
Yeah, I think the beauty of running your own business and being able to make decisions at that level is you get presented with opportunities all the time, and you have to make a split-second decision, sometimes split-second decision to say, do we need to do this? And you're more defined by the things you say no to, like I mentioned on collaborations, than the things you say yes to. But when you do say yes to certain things, this being one of the things we decided was the right decision, you know that it's going to be something people talk about. And for us, we see Seoul as a bit of a second home to us. We've spent a lot of time there. Golf is very big there. But the main thing is that people consume differently in different markets. So in Korea, people specifically shop in person. Online, of course, there's an online market, but the department store model is very important there. So if we were going to be serious about growing in that market, we had to go into physical first. The UK is not quite the same, and I envy this space, it's beautiful, but we still don't have a store. That doesn't mean we haven't been offered, it just meant we didn't feel it was needed yet. Korea was different, and that's why we decided it was needed and a necessary decision for the business.
So golf is obviously big out there. You see that as a market that Manors wants to go into, like Asia and etc.
Yeah, I mean, golf in Korea is huge specifically. The other very interesting thing is that it's almost 50-50 men and women. England, UK, America is much more skewed to men. And
is that in terms of who plays golf?
Who plays golf.
Yeah.
So it's 50-50, and most men, the golf clothing that they wear is bought by their wives or their girlfriends. That is just culturally how it's done. And women tend to prefer to shop in store in Korea, and that is why the semantics of the market are like that. And you just have to be, as a business, you have to adapt. We had an opportunity to do something in Korea 2 years ago. We thought about it, we decided it wasn't right. 2 years later, we thought about it again, we decided it was the right time.
How important is international expansion to Manors in your business plan? Has it always been an ambition? And did you expect it to be Korea? And are you chuffed with how it's all working out in terms of the international stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say my opinion, and I'm sure Luke has an opinion, but Europe is a great example of we do very little business in Europe. And that is not because we don't want to, it's because it's expensive, the duties, it's a Brexit side effect. But we don't do a lot of business there, and it's very expensive to do it. So we could set up a warehouse in Europe and we could try and grow, but we thought, and correctly so, the opportunity is bigger in America. So we have a warehouse in America, and we spent that same money setting up in America. That's 45% of our business now. Korea is, again, more of a product of the fact that it's specifically retail, physical retail, and we think there's a huge opportunity in there, but it's still less than 5% of our business. But it's just the way they shop is very different.
Yeah, I think what we're uncovering here tonight, and what I've known but never been able to really ask the questions, is between Luke and JoJo, they're serious operators and they're serious thinkers, and there's devil in the detail, and they're not just creatives, yet they're able to have created a brand that's very brand first. So credit to yourselves. What was the question I was going to ask you lads? Yeah, so back to brand quickly. What would you say is personally your favorite brand achievement, and conversely what have you done and been fuck, that was kind of shit?
Kind of shit. Can I say kind of shit stuff? I mean,
It's your work, so.
Let's not clip this bit up.
You've just clipped it.
Yeah. Just clip to something else. I mean, there's to be honest, since we've rebranded, to be honest, I've been really proud of the content that we've put out. I think the hardest thing for me recently has been, because of my background in directing, every time we do a campaign, I either direct it or co-direct it. And also our head of marketing, I was at film school with him. He's a producer in his background. So we had a tendency to get way too involved, and not that we're that big a business, but even at the scale we're at, you can't have your head of marketing and creative director being that closely involved in campaigns. And so the last campaign we did, a collaboration with a brand I won't name, but you could find out very easily, I was too involved. Sorry, it was the first time where I took a step back, but I didn't do the job of briefing it properly. And so it didn't feel like it was as strong as it could have been. And I feel it was the biggest budget we ever had, and probably the least compelling campaign we've ever made at Manors. And so the thing of like chasing budgets is like, it's not that. It's the budget meet with, is there a really good story there to be told? Because if there isn't, it's kind of just a bit bland.
Yeah.
And then to be honest, everything else, I know it sounds big-headed, but that campaign there, I loved.
It's a screamer.
It was also just fucking good fun. We just went to Iceland with 8 of us for like 7 days. And because we have ambassadors who love golf, you know, I imagine if you tried to shoot an 8-day campaign, getting models and talent and people to shoot is going to be like very expensive. Whereas we go, everyone we work with is a golfer. Do you want to come on an 8-day golf trip to Iceland? We're going to shoot some stuff.
Also, Luke comes to me and he goes, I want to go to Iceland. And I go, that's going to be fucking expensive.
Why?
And he goes, this is my plan. I go, right, let me make some calls. And LinkedIn, and you know, you're scrolling around, and I go, who's the biggest company in Iceland? It's Iceland Air. Get in touch with them. We'd like to come and film in Iceland about golf. And now this is our vision. And I get Luke to put a deck together, and we put it in front of them like we were talking about. That whole campaign was funded by Iceland Air, pretty much, right? Bear in mind, maybe
Must have brought so much tourism to Iceland.
yeah, and well, honestly,
No.
honestly,
Just a sick campaign for you boys.
honestly, though, you say that, but we've had people say, I've looked at booking trips. I mean, whether they did or not. But the point there was, it's about being an operator. It's about being resourceful and going, okay, we're going to have to pay for this. It's going to cost us X. How can we try and take as much of that off the table? And the result was a video that we had to put the Iceland Air logo on and a couple of, you know, reels. And Luke got to go and spend that money. And so that, for us, is a great example of beautiful asset, shows Iceland in a great light, and it didn't cost us as much as it should have done.
Yeah, nice. I think like one nugget that everybody can take away from the last few days from like a lot of the founders and the brands that are here is that you have to speculate to accumulate. You have to be willing to think bigger, spend bigger in order to see the dividends of all of that hard work. I'm going to be slightly selfish here for 1 second. So we're about to have that play. We're going to America in a couple of weeks to film a documentary called Mission America to find out if our 4-year-old startup batch would work in the States. Now, we're in no position to launch there in terms of like funds or structure operationally, but you know, it's a future ambition of the brand, so that's why we're doing it. So we're taking a videographer, very run and gun. I guess like the question to you guys is guys that are kind of like smart, you're organized with your thoughts, and you can come up with a big idea and execute. Like, what advice would you give me ahead of going to the States in order for us to be able to create a really meaningful campaign that takes us to the next level as a brand?
Why are people interested in watching this?
So since day dot, we've well, more or less, we've built Batch in real life, like you were just kind of citing Henry with Salt. We, for example, did like a 5-part YouTube series building this shop. Like, to have this flagship store in Covent Garden as a brand that at the time was 2 years old is something serious. People want to follow along with the journey. People like the jeopardy, people like the authenticity, people like the founder story. And I think there's something interesting to be able to watch from an entrepreneurial perspective, not just like, oh, look at our suits in New York. It's like, hang on a second, from a business perspective, does this make sense? And that's what we're going to find out ultimately.
And your content's great. I would say...
It's okay, that's our issue, it's okay.
But I would say the obstacles, the content that maybe you wouldn't want to put out of, like, let's say you have an investor meeting and it goes terribly, is like...
Well, no, that's perfect. That's the vulnerability that I don't care showing. I don't give a shit. That, and to be honest, like, rejection is just as good as like, yeah, here's... Yo, I'll give you like $10 million, let's set Batch up in New York, bro. Like, hopefully it goes like that, but chances are it won't, and I'm cool with both situations. I want to create a documentary that is very transparent, whether it's win or lose. So what's the advice?
Well, the advice is try and
Try and find somebody that's willing to
try and
invest.
engineer some situations where you're going to get a hard no, and so you actually have the conflict of you receiving that. I would also say, how long is this documentary?
So the structure is, we're going out for a week, 22nd to the 29th in Miami and New York, 7 episodes basically with a trailer for each. It may not be 7, but that's the rough idea. So it's long form, and then we've got 10 missions that we have to complete whilst we're there that form this short form. So to your point earlier, it's like, think of the short form first. This conversation came up, I called Sam and I was like, and interestingly to your, like, you were like, let's go to Iceland. JoJo says, why? I called Sam and I was like, we just raised some money, we've got a marketing budget, like the Football World Cup's on, let's go to America, bro. And he's obviously like, why? So then I have to be like, okay, yeah, no, that is a fair point. Like, we can't just spend money for the sake of it. Like, why, from a brand perspective? And we were trying, like, is it about the football? The football didn't really make sense, although it's fun. So then what our roots are, building this brand in real life to try and get people really engaged with what we're doing. So yeah, short form content of these missions, very silly missions that without any context is brilliant socially native content, which is where we're weak, whilst also this longer form YouTube thing that gets people really engaged with what we're trying to do.
What's your, not to make this just a focus group on this, but
Yeah,
what's your,
keep asking me questions.
do you ever go live?
No, we don't.
Because I would say in those meetings, like, go live in one of those meetings and like do put more emphasis on this is actually happening. The views might not be good, but we have an in with the head of sport at TikTok in the UK, and I'm gonna screw this up a bit, but he was like, you have no idea the advantage. TikTok is trying to promote live so much that it's the biggest growth area on social right now, and so if you can be as authentic and vulnerable as you're suggesting, and these moments, they don't need to be edited and like, can you do the raw moment of like teeing up, we're going to have this investor meeting and letting it play out?
That's the plan.
I'd also say my hat on, I'd say Coca-Cola could pay for that. Or, you know, there's got to be a brand, right? I'm already thinking, like, why are you in there? It's like, we're here because of the World Cup, and this is what's going to happen. And by the way, this video is sponsored by Coca-Cola or whatever.
Yeah. We did talk about sponsors, but again, it's like bandwidth. It's like, that's why I've been so interested with how you guys have been able to like be such operators whilst also having the bandwidth to be so creative, which is quite unique.
And I think that probably helps in that. In the Iceland Air example is we found out that the son of the CEO of Iceland Air knew our brand, and that took the research for us to do to then get to then get the decision maker to make the decision. But why couldn't you dress the Coca-Cola crew to go to games or whatever, you know?
Big picture thinking.
I got to say something about JoJo now, and it's both his best trait and as a co-founder, for me, the most frustrating thing of him is that his network. People hate the word networking. Maybe not the people in this room because you're here on a Friday, but
You love networking.
but the determination of this man to, if he meets someone, to not just have the coffee, but if they have an event going on, he'll go to the event, he'll go to the dinner party. Like, he puts so much effort in. And so often I'll look at his calendar and I'm like, JoJo, we've got so much work on. Why are you having a general second breakfast meeting with some kid who's the son of Iceland Air? And then 3 months later, it's like, JoJo, we want to go to Iceland. And so it's like the amount of work and graft this guy puts in on building his network. I've come to a stage now where I'm just like, I applaud it and I thank the fact that I don't need to do it, but that is a real superpower and one that a lot of people just either can't be bothered or find it too cringe. No offense.
I'm taking it works.
You have to be a bit cringe, unfortunately, sometimes. The fucking boys at Cold Buxton, they're never cringe. I'm like, bastards, how are you so cool? Right. I'll wrap. JoJo, I think I read somewhere that you wrote, what people are seeing now is a 10-year overnight success story. Can you explain what you meant by this and what's the plan for the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, which is very kind, they'll pat us on the back, everyone in our team, and say, wow, everything that you guys have done is so amazing. I love Manors, and whether they like golf and like Manors because of that, or they just they respect the fact that we've built a decent business. Or trying to build a decent business, they see it as an overnight success, or you guys might have discovered our brand a year ago. You know, there were the dark ages, is what we call it, where we were like, fucking hell, is this thing gonna still exist in 6 months' time? And it's really easy to forget the fact that it takes a long time to build good brand. And Luke said it. We have turned up every single day for 5 years, every single day, whether that be getting deliveries to people on time when it was costing us more money than they were giving us, or whether it be posting another social, or whether it be spending way too much money on an event that we didn't have. We continued to show up. And I think a lot of people forget they're chasing success in business, which I respect, but they're forgetting the fact that there's no substitution for time. Like, you just got to keep existing. And the only thing I would say about what we're trying to do for the next 10 years is work just as hard and continue to exist and continue to build a good business and a business that people give a shit about.
Hell yeah. Before we ask some questions, can I just get a massive Friday night round of applause for JoJo and Luke, everybody. Well done, boys. Yeah, so couple of questions, because I'm absolutely desperate for a week. Who's got any questions for JoJo and Luke? Anybody? Go on then. Do you want to pass the mic to JJ quickly? I'll pass this one. Got it? Nice one. Thank you.
Hey lads, thanks for a wonderful talk. At the start of your journey, you spoke to your pivot, and you obviously had amazing investors that backed you as founders rather than the raw metrics on the page. I would just love to understand, how did you in those early days go about finding the right investors, and how did you how have you continued to navigate the fundraising challenges?
I'm going to hand this to JoJo because he does handle this.
He wants it.
I've got to say, so I only was in the investor meetings at the early stage where, when you don't have business metrics and you are selling brand and belief, the lucky thing we had is a lot of our investors loved golf. And so they saw the fact there was a gap in the market. But as we've gotten bigger, obviously the different investors start looking far more at actually what are the underlying economics here. But again, going back to my point on JoJo's network, we didn't have big institutional investors. Like, the average ticket size was tiny. So it wasn't a big punt for any one of them, but it was mainly the fact that this man it was his job. His job was, he was taking meetings and raising money and just constantly grinding in it. But I'm sure you have a more eloquent way to put that.
Yeah, it's a game of numbers massively, and 9 times out of 10, the one you think are guaranteed don't come in, and the ones you didn't think were coming in come in, and you just have to play the laws of averages. I think, going back to the point on investing in the people, you put a deck together, you'll never satiate everyone's appetite. You go to someone and you say, I built a really robust model, and it shows in 5 years we're going to be doing 25 million turnover, and they go, that's not ambitious enough. You go to someone else and they go, here's my £1 billion business idea, and they go, there's no fucking way you're doing that. So like, all you have to do is go in with confidence. Every single question they ask you, answer it with confidence. The minute you look like you don't know the answer to anything is the minute you've lost them as an investor.
Cool. Anybody else?
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you both for that. What advice would you give to a company that's not looking to scale or having to rely on social media content?
What is your company?
Clothing.
And so you don't want to scale, but you want to grow?
Yes.
And how do you grow currently?
We're very early stages at the moment, so kind of almost nothing.
So I think the only way to grow is to reach new customers. Like, growth is just, you can't rely on return customers. You need to find new people and compel them to buy your product. Organic social is one way to do it, but you can also there's influencer marketing, there's paid social, there's distribution, there's pop-ups. The reason I'm so pushy on organic is it's the cheapest with the best possibility to scale. You can create a piece of content that scales so far and you get so much value back from, whereas anything you're paying in terms of distribution or pop-ups, like it doesn't scale with the amount of money you put in. You have to keep putting more money to do it. If you don't want to do organic social, which I would challenge, I would find the right influencers. Like, for a long time, we just didn't consider influencer marketing because we just felt we wouldn't have the budgets, and I don't know why we didn't, but we just did. But recently,
Right people. They weren't the right people.
maybe it was the access to the right people, but it's amazing. We have 12 ambassadors now. Just basically, it's influencers who really affiliate with our brand, and the proportion of revenue that is created just from these people posting content is amazing. So we're fine to do organic social, but if you're in a position where you're like, I don't want to be wasting time on that, if you can find the right content creator or influencer who's doing that work anyway, that can be really valuable. All I would say is it's about the depth that they post. Like my cousin owns this nutrition and health supplement company called the Nuco, and they paid a ludicrous amount of money to work with one of the Jenners. I can't remember which one. Crazy amount of money. There was a post, it was stories. They spent so much, and it generated like 4 sales because it was just a one-off thing. And so they were like, what the hell? We have tiny profiles who have like 10, 15K followers, but because they're posting consistently, the value comes from that repetition. So I would say influencer marketing.
I'd also say there's a really good balance between building a lifestyle business and building a business for sale. So from our side, Luke and I very early on made the decision that I'm quite clearly quite capitalist and quite like the idea of trying to build a business for sale. You have to have a good balance when it comes to your ethos as a business. But if you're comfortable trying to build a business that is a lifestyle company that you could get a fantastic living and a great quality of life out of, then the model doesn't need to look like a hockey stick. It can look very sustainable. You don't need external money. You could do it slow, but just know what that timeline looks like and stick to it.
Awesome. I think unfortunately we were tied to 2 questions. Does somebody from the Wayflyer team want to say something? Here we go. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Well done, guys. Thank you very much.